Dear Meemo, I am afraid of death. Not because I don't understand it, but because I'm afraid to lose you. Dear Meemo, I remember you took me to an art museum in Florida once. There was this massive kinetic sculpture outside. Primary colored chutes and ladders created a playground for a marble. I never knew art could possess such exhilarating life. But we didn't look at the sculpture. We were looking for lucky pennies. You said, only pick them up if you can see Abraham Lincoln. Who's Abraham Lincoln? I said. Dear Meemo, when I learned that your real name was Mona, I thought that's Spanish for monkey. It felt funny to call you Grandma Monkey, so I called you Meemo, and you called me...
Hi, Amanda Panda. It's Meemo.
Thank you for giving me a name to be proud of. Dear Meemo, every time I get on an airplane, I think about the 3 times you almost died on one. But then I think about how the first time you got on a plane in 20 years was to fly all the way to Costa Rica and see me, your newly born granddaughter. I touched the lucky penny necklace, the one you gave me on my first birthday, the one I have never taken off. Dear Meemo, my friend told me a joke about cigarettes. I didn't laugh because I saw what it did to you, but it was the breast cancer that actually did it. Still, I didn't laugh. Dear Meemo, when you got sick again, I wrote you a letter you would never read. Dear Meemo, I wanted to memorialize how you saved Florida's housing market after the mortgage crisis, Dear Meemo, and would dance to elevator music in front of strangers. Dear Meemo, but instead, I wrote about how hurt you were when I stopped holding your hand in shopping malls, and how you let me cut your hair before I knew how to use scissors. But in big letters, Dear Meemo, I wrote about when you told me to never go a day without laughing. I wanted your extraordinary, exhilarating life on paper, a brief history of unapologetic you. Dear Meemo, I wanted to remember how your breath smelled like coffee when we rubbed our noses together like Eskimos, and how your favorite quote was chocolate is the answer, who cares what the question is. Dear Meemo, I wanted to remember how you loved Coca-Cola and always needed a sweater, even in the Florida heat. Dear Meemo, I wanted to remember how you pretended to be on the phone in the background of a movie telling me
I miss you, gobbles and gobbles.
I wanted to remember the day you took me to my first art class and stayed with me because I was so nervous. Dear Meemo, I wanted to remember the first time you called me your drama queen, pushing me to fall in love with theater before I knew what it was. Dear Meemo, I wanted to remember everything because I was terrified the world will forget you. Dear Meemo, I promise you won't disappear. You said, how do you know? Dear Meemo, someone told me they know what it feels like to die. They said it feels like when the lights go down in a theater. That doesn't make me so afraid anymore, but I still don't want to lose you. Dear Meemo, when I visited you in the hospital after the time you almost died, I noticed the wrinkles around your mouth from every time you had laughed. I asked, have you laughed today? No, you said. Me neither. And in that moment I was happy we hadn't. If we had, we would have been saying goodbye. Dear Meemo, I was right to fear death. Dear Meemo, I had a bad day yesterday. I saw a lucky penny. I laughed. That's how I know.